Don't make these mistakes with your turntable. In this video, we're going to cover off on a few tips to keeping your record player sounding its best if you're a beginner or even if you're a little bit advanced. This actually comes from a segment from our podcast, the PT audio podcast called The Occasional Podcast, where we interview Dr. Vinyl and really dive deep into some more of the intricate details. If you'd like to hear that episode, Season 10, Episode 9, I'll drop a link in the description so you can hear the full interview with Dr. Vinyl and his perspective and his tips for the perfect turntable. So let me start it off with a couple of tips that make sure everything works right for you in the long haul. The number one thing I feel like people need to be aware of is that records can get dirty. If you have pets, the hairs float down from wherever they start, land on the records, and they tend to get dirty. So I like to recommend getting a static brush to kind of pick up a lot of the dust and pet hair if you have it off a record, and use that every time before you put the record on. So static brush to get all that dust off, the light stuff. Also get a bigger cleaning brush to really get in the grooves, and if you really are serious, get even a record cleaning device or machine or a deeper cleaning option to keep your favorite records working their best. The number one reason is because if you get pet hair or dust and the needle starts to collect, I've seen this really strange thing. I went to a friend's house and they said, hey, my record won't stay on the needle, it won't stay on the groove, it keeps pulling into the middle of the record with the tracking force. And it was because so much dust and hair had collected on the needle, it was no longer staying in the groove. So another thing you might want to consider over time, first keep your records clean, and then keep your needle clean by getting a little brush or buying something to keep all those little hair and dust particles off the needle. And the number one thing you have to remember is only do the brushing the direction the record spins. The last thing you want to do is go against the grain and snap that needle off. Terrible business. Try to avoid it if possible. So when you brush, you just brush with the way the record spins, exactly the same motion. Also, important to remember, keep your turntable level as possible. Sometimes they have adjustable feet that will help keep them level. And so that helps with, of course, too much pull in any direction, bad for the needle. And this is why, because we talk about it extensively with Dr. Vinyl, the alignment. And a lot of the things people don't realize is you can have too much pressure down, too little pressure down. It can pull left, it can pull right, it can be at the wrong angle, left or right, that can affect channel impact, left and right as it digs in, and it can be rotated wrong. So all of these things, and I think that last tip really, alignment, is something that gets quite complicated, and we talk about with Dr. Vinyl some more. So I'm going to let him kind of take that over. And one of the things I really like to also recommend is getting a record weight. They make a bunch of different sizes, shapes, and whatever, but I have a nice copper one here. One of the things a record weight does is help keep the record flat on the surface. It also helps reduce vibrations, and it also helps kind of keep it so it doesn't wobble around as much if it's a little bit warped. So I do like a good record weight as a nice final tip. But those are just some short, easy tips to start with. And then now we're going into the big interview with Dr. Vinyl, and we dig in deep with our mental shovels. So as we say, on with the show, here we go. Don't make these mistakes with your turntable. Analog life lessons with Dr. Vinyl.